Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to install and set up my own custom Unity package. In the last video I show you how to make your own, but in the meantime I've been working on my package and I've put it on my GitHub, it's publicly available. I'll show you how to install and set it up through Unity so you can use the package manager, and then I'll show you guys what I've done so far, what I plan on doing, we'll discuss that kind of stuff, and I'll show you how to make your own changes in case you download it and realize, it would be cool if we had this feature. I mean, let's see if Dapper wants it, right? So you can make those changes, do a pull request on GitHub, and then I can review the changes, and if I want them I can pull them, and then obviously I could refactor if I want to, but it saves me time. If you guys already have a good feature you want to be added and it makes sense and I agree with it, I can add it to the package. Yeah, I've got a changelog and all the readmes and stuff, so you guys can read through that. I'm not going to sit here and read through it all, but I'll give you an overview of it. Now let's get to the video. But of course, first I've got to thank my patrons. A special thanks to Flowstate Games, Average Morning, Renee, Evgeny, Art Farrell, Budaray, and Remy Baldwin. If anyone else is able to help support the channel monetarily, the link to my Patreon is down below. If not, there are also links to my social media, such as Twitch, Twitter, and Discord. It would help me out a lot if you guys followed on any of those. That'd be greatly appreciated, and let's get to the video. Okay, so down below will be a link to my GitHub page. We've got dapperdino/Dapper Tools. I'm sure you guys can find it anyway. Now, as you notice, here it is. I have laid this out like I explained last video, where you have your editor, runtime, test, whatever. I've got changelog. I'll look through these in a minute. I've got an explanation here of basically what it is, how to install it. You don't actually have to do it like this if you're using a new version of Unity. If you're using 2019.3 or newer, you don't have to just paste it in yourself. You can actually do it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it just does this anyway. So, this is fine. It's still going to be true at all times. And then this is just an explanation of how to install mock, because for unit testing my code, I'm using mock. And so for those to be imported correctly, you're going to need to have mock too. I actually have a video on mock. I've got it open right here. I'm going to link this down below. It just shows you how to use it for your unit testing. I highly recommend you use it anyway. Like, even if you're not using my package, it's really good. Unit testing is very important. I know some people say it's not worth it, it's a waste of time, but I think the people who say that most of the time are not doing it right. It's more of a, you gotta know how to do it well before it seems like it pays off. And I'm slowly getting more into understanding that. And more recently, I've been enjoying it much more and finding it's much more of a time saver, because whenever I get bugs, it's really easy to know that you've got bugs and to go fix them. But anyway, enough about unit testing. I've got videos on that. Feel free to go watch those. We have no editor scripts just yet, but I plan on making editor scripts for the other scripts I'm writing if it makes sense to do so. Tests, obviously, I've got, but runtime is where the actual code is. In runtime, we have components, extensions, scriptable events, state machines. So I'll show you this inside Unity, where it's actually a dark background and you can read it better. But the point is, you can import this project by going to clone, download, and seeing this URL here, you can copy it. So it's a copy to the clipboard. And if you go into Unity, so here's the actual tools package. This is where all the code is, right? I can show you in here. Here's the code. I'm commenting all the codes that make sense to comment, like obviously not just set active game object, set the active game object. The code that makes sense, like actual logic and functions, I'm going to comment so you guys can understand it much easier. This is aimed for beginners who want to use it, and also more advanced people who want to help develop it and expand on it. We have state machine stuff. I'm going to be giving examples in the project so you guys can see how it works. We got scriptable events, which is a thing I showed ages ago, how to make scriptable object events. If you guys want that, it's part of this package. You can obviously expand upon this yourself by making your own, but this just involves simply void, and that's it, right? Just the void event. But if you want to add your own data types, you can do that. I'm considering also adding like int, string, like all the default types in there as well, the primitive data types. Then we've also got some extra data types, serialized, quaternion, and vectors, because those aren't normally serializable. If you try and, I don't know, raise an event, like a Unity event, and pass through these as a parameter, you can't. You have to do it yourself specially. It's a bit annoying. So I've made these, so if you guys want to do that, you can just use the serializable vector 2, but you can still treat it like a vector 2. It's kind of handy. Same with quaternions and vector frees. Then components, I've made my own kind of reusable components that aren't game specific. So any game that has movement can use these. I'm not going to go through all the code. Input stuff I'm working on right now. This isn't currently available if you download it. That's going to be available maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow when I get around to finishing it. And then obviously these are always ready to be updated. Like, there's plenty of this stuff that can be improved on. That's why I want you guys to use it and test it and give me feedback on how useful it is or not. We've got timer here, which is a generic timer component. Notice how this is non-mono behavior, and then I have a mono behavior that has a timer and handles update function and subscribing and stuff, so that I can then unit test. If I go down here, we've got Dapper Tools. Oh, tests, here we go. Yeah, tools, tests, runtime, components, for example, the timer component tests or whatever. So I can make new instances of timer and test them without the mono behavior, whereas in the game they're actually used on the mono behavior. So it helps me test the code separate from mono behavior, since you can test mono behaviors. It's just very awkward to do so, and they're annoying because they have to exist in the scene and they have a transform, and just these extra things you don't need. If you just want to test a piece of code, just test the one thing itself. But yeah, I'm liking how it's coming along. So to actually get it into your project, let's open up another project. So for example, my other test project I'm actually trying to use it in. Notice how I have basically nothing in my scripts folder right now, but what I do have, if I go to packages, is Dapper Tools, and here are Dapper Tools. Now you can look through here, but you can't really do many changes because they're just the package things. And if we actually go and show an explorer, well, okay, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the package manager and I'm going to get rid of it and then show you guys how to add it. So I remove it and it goes, and then obviously Unity is going to do its little compiling, and it's going to delete the package because it's gone now. It's going to remove it. There it goes. So now all my code that relies on it is going to give me error. They're going to give me errors. Actually, currently I have no code relying on it, funnily enough. But anyway, to install it, you want to go to Add, Package from Git URL. If you don't see this link, it's because you're using a version before Unity 2019.3. But if you do, then you can just paste in a link here. Now, I think I have it copy-pasted. Yep, there it is. Add. And it's as simple as that. You press Add, you give it a second, and then it adds the latest version from the GitHub repo. Now, the thing is, if you don't have that button, the way you do it is how I said on the repository page over here. This is how you do it. You can paste that line into your file manually. They've just added a button to make your life easier. So if I go to, just get rid of that. If I go to Show in Explorer, Packages, Package Manifest, you'll notice Dapper Tools is a Git URL repository here. Okay, and at the bottom there's this. Now, I found out only recently that to update the repository, so if I update the GitHub package and you guys want to update it in your game, you have to actually just delete this and then save tab out, and then it'll update for you, or it'll tell you can update. If not, it actually doesn't know to update, which is a bit weird. I think there might be actually a way to turn that off and make it update normally. I'm not quite sure. It's a bit weird. That's just how it is right now. It's kind of a new thing, this Git URL in here. So for now, you'll just have to do that, guys. You'll just have to delete this when there's a new update. Just check on the GitHub if you notice there's a new update. Delete this, and you can get the changes. Equally, you can just remove this and then paste it back in yourself. Either way works. You just have to remember the URL that way. Once you've got it in your project, it's really simple to use. It's just a case of in your scripts, you get a script, and let's say I want to do something with the timer component. I can say like var timer equals a new timer, and it's going to say from Dapper Dino components timers. There we go. And I've got my new timer, and then you obviously need to pass in how many seconds the timer goes on for, and so on. Basically, you can do all these different things, right? You can use the package. It's really easy to use. I don't need to sit here explaining that. I just want to show you a bit of the actual code I've written. So if I go over here, we've got, for example, a thing. Now, this was just an example I showed earlier. Not on the video, so you haven't missed it. I showed it on stream earlier. We have a state machine behavior, and a state here for idle. An idle, when I press spacebar, transitions to jump, and when I press spacebar, it transitions to idle. It's not a practical example. I haven't got a practical example just yet, but I will. Notice how when I press play, the state machine enters the starting state, which is idle. So idle is now active, and it's listening in for when I press spacebar. So when I press spacebar, we switch to jump, and when I press spacebar again, we go back. Now, I'm never actually going to have this spacebar transition because, you know, you wouldn't want a script for every single different kind of input. You want just a generic input one that lets you input anything to change state, and that's what I'm going to make. I just did this really quickly. It's a one-liner, just that. Feel free to read through the code to get how it works. I'm not going to waste the rest of this video just explaining to you guys the actual code itself, but you can use a state machine to actually handle states, because you don't want to use the Unity animator, even though you can. That should be strictly used for animation, and even then, I'm more inclined with my player character, or just with characters in general, to use my own state machine and just use the animator just for animation. So what would happen is my state machine that I've made would tell the animator to change state. The animator itself is just there to play animations, nothing else, no state handling. Because a lot of people online, if you look through the forums, don't actually like the animator for that kind of stuff. It kind of does stuff that you don't expect it to, and it's too much overhead. Like, the performance of this is so much better because it's just a simple update loop tick rather than all the stuff that goes on with an animator. And it's nice because you can inherit and you can build your own transitions, because this space transition is on top of a state transition. All you have to do is you have to override this function for should transition, and basically you can set up yourself the condition for transitioning. So if I press spacebar this frame, then go to next state underscore jump. Obviously I could say go to the same state if I wanted to. It's up to you, right? But it's however you want to design it. I can add more states, for example. I could make state idle go to jump go to something else go to idle, or idle go to jump go to something else go to jump go to idle. However you want, right? You just have to set up the transitions. Then any code logic you actually want to happen. So for example, let's say while in the jumping state, I play a different animation. I just have to add a script onto here. This object, remember, it gets enabled and disabled when you go into and out of the state. So you can make a script that listens for on enable and on disable callback. And even for update, because update gets turned off when you're not active. So you can make a fully working script here that happens when you enter the state, or in the state, exit the state. You can listen to all these different things. And then you can, for example, on enter, play an animation. On exit, stop playing the animation, or play some particles when you exit a state, or whatever. This can be reused for players, AI. By AI, I mean just like enemy logic. You can use it for, I don't know, puzzles, for example, like the state of a puzzle. I just think it's really useful. You can use it for anything. State machines are really good. Any place where you'd normally have an enum for like different states you're in, don't bother with enums. Enums are okay for really, really simple things, but there's no need. But yeah, I want you guys to give me feedback on this so I can improve it. I'm going to keep improving it anyway, but feedback is always better and more appreciated. So I hope you like this video. Sorry it wasn't much of an actual tutorial, I'd say, for coding, but it's a tutorial for just Unity packages in general, and also you guys can obviously learn from this code, right? It's just there for you to go look through and use. I also made some extensions. That's one last thing I want to show you if I just stop this. In scripts of a package, actually I've already got it open. I've made extensions as well as the other things, where for example on a game object you can now call .get or add component. You you do the T brackets, basically the type brackets for what component you want to get or add, and it simply gets it if it's there, otherwise it adds it. And same with has component, we just get it and check if it's null or not. So you don't have to do the logic as yourself saying if get component does not equal null all over the place. You can just say if game object has component. For lists, you can say list.random to get a random character rather than having to write this every time. You can say list.random. A list.remove random, so it does the same thing but also gets rid of the thing it showed you. List.shuffle, it does a shuffle algorithm on the list. It works on any kinds of lists. String extensions, we've got with color. So for example, if I wanted to use this function, I know it's dumb to do it in here, but let's say I had var a equals an empty string. I can then say a dot with color, and then I pass in the color, so color dot red, and then that would return, calling this function, this string. It would convert the color to RGB, and then it would put the text A in there. So it actually makes the text a certain color without having to do all this stupid logic every time. You just have to say dot with color. It's pretty helpful. Transform extensions. I had destroyed children, so you can loop over a particular transform and get rid of all the children without having to, because normally you can detach them all, but that doesn't get rid of them all. So this is just a nice helper function, transform dot destroy children. And then there's vector extensions, which I thought kind of useful. You can convert a vector 3 to a vector 2. You can just change the x or the y on a vector. So if you have say you have a vector that you're reading from something and you want to use that value and then, I don't know, just change one part of it, you can just say dot change y rather than, or dot change x rather than equals a new vector 2 of x and blah 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 dot y. You can just do dot change x and it does this for you. Dot change y, dot change x, dot change y, that's for vector 3s, dot change z. Basically all these different functions that are really useful. So if you guys have any more good ideas, feel free to let me know. I'll include them in the package. I just hope we can make this a really good package with you guys in the community helping me work on it and develop it and fix bugs and add new features. Let me know down below what you think about it. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. But that's it from me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.